This ongoing Virginia governor story is one of the weirder political scandals I can remember. Recall this all started last week with baby killing, or at least floating the idea, until we took a sharp turn toward racism. And now we're all on a Me Too detour until we reach our final destination, and anyone's guess about where that might be is fair. My money's on Bigfoot or pedophilia somehow getting into the mix, or maybe even a Bigfoot pedophile. This story's just crazy enough, and it's getting even crazier this week with additional developments. But before we get to those, let's review how we got here. Last week, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam attracted criticism for making this commentary on proposed legislation to relax regulation against late-term abortions in his state.
The infant would be delivered, the infant would be kept comfortable, the infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired, and then a discussion would ensue.
In addition to drawing national attention, this apparently irked one of Northam's old medical school classmates who tipped off big league politics about Northam's rather controversial yearbook page from way back when. And Northam immediately took to Twitter to say, yeah, sorry guys, that's a bad look and I take responsibility. I apologize.
I accept responsibility for my past actions, and I am ready to do the hard work of regaining your trust.
Until the next day when the governor said, just kidding, that isn't actually me.
I am not either of the people in that photo.
And I know it's not me because I have distinct memories of the other times I wore blackface, so it couldn't be me this time I allegedly wore blackface.
I did participate in a dance contest in which I darkened my face as part of a Michael Jackson costume. It is because my memory of that episode is so vivid that I truly do not believe I am in the picture in my yearbook.
And also, I have no idea why my nickname at the time was Coon Man.
There were two individuals, as best I can recollect, that called me Coon Man. I don't know their motives or intent.
The nickname is Coon Face, not Coon Man, on account of my love of wearing coon face, except in this particular instance when I most certainly did not. Not a great explanation. Should have gone with I invented a superhero that South Park later ripped off.
All right, superheroes, it's time to lay out our plan of action.
Honestly, the governor could have said almost anything besides the response that he chose and probably been better off. It was confusing, contradictory, and outright nonsensical, but that's his story and he's sticking with it. As of this recording, he is refusing to resign, despite every leader of even his own party pressuring him to do so. I do find this whole story hilarious, especially given the context that Virginians were told to vote for Northam because his Republican opponent Ed Gillespie is so racist he likes to run down minority children with trucks. But to be clear, while I do enjoy a little irony and a little entertainment, I'm not on board with the precedent of combing through everyone's every word or photograph from 30 years ago as a means to destroy their careers. I actually do not care about this yearbook page at all. I think Northam was probably part of a poor taste Halloween costume or something like that before I was even born. So I'm not joining any outrage mob. I'm just chuckling from a spectator seat as the party that perpetuates this purity purge starts to turn on its own. And I gotta say, it's tragically understated how the controversy that may end Ralph Northam's career is not in fact his apparent endorsement of infanticide, or at least the option for it, but the fact that he wore the wrong costume in decades past. If we're going to have these outrage mobs, can we at least have our outrage priorities straight? If this outrage mob is successful, then Northam's days as governor are numbered, and attention turns to Virginia's prospective successor, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. As soon as Fairfax's political prospects took a sharp upswing, someone conveniently swoops in with yet another career wrecking ball, and this is where the story takes another weird turn. And I'd say stop me if you've heard this one before, but you've definitely heard this one before, right down to several key details. The only detail that's missing now is what Fairfax's opinion of beer is.
We drank beer. I like beer. I like beer. Okay. You like beer, Senator?
And I guess we don't yet know what's in the accuser's hippocampus either, but for now, Fairfax is going to get the same Kavanaugh treatment because via the same publication, Big League Politics, allegations of sexual impropriety against Fairfax have emerged from Vanessa Tyson, a fellow at Stanford University. A strange strange coincidence, since Kavanaugh accuser Christine Blasey Ford is also a research pathologist there. According to a leaked Facebook post from the accuser published by Big League, Fairfax allegedly sexually assaulted her at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. He was a John Kerry staffer at the time. There's not a lot more detail in this piece, but through the Washington Post, we get more information because it turns out the accuser approached the Post with the story after the election in 2017. The accusation at the time was she and Fairfax had met at the convention through a mutual friend, which put her at ease. He invited her to his hotel room to pick up some papers, some consensual kissing began, and it escalated later into non-consensual forced sex acts. And why didn't we hear of this at the time? Well, because the Washington Post has too much journalistic integrity to publish unsubstantiated, career-ruining allegations. They found no direct evidence to corroborate the account. They made phone calls to people who knew Fairfax at various phases of his life to find any similar stories or information with no results, and so they opted not to run the story. Until 8 or 9 months later, when they happily ran the grand reveal of Christine Blasey Ford's identity and claims against Brett Kavanaugh. Did they have evidence or corroboration then? No, of course not, but that's way different because reasons. For his part, Fairfax is denying these allegations in full, calling them false and unsubstantiated. Asked by reporters if he believes the information leak to be a sabotage attempt from Governor Northam's people to preserve themselves, Fairfax asks, how can one ignore the timing?
You believe that the governor's team is spreading misinformation about your team. Can you comment on that?
Does anybody think it's any coincidence that on the eve of potentially my being elevated, that's when this uncorroborated smear comes out? Does anybody believe that's a coincidence?
Keep in mind that Virginia's governor and lieutenant governor are separately elected. They didn't run together on the same ticket. They do both belong to the same party, but they're not necessarily on the same team. To Northam, Fairfax is just a guy. He's not a running mate. So it is possible there are some shenanigans at play. And that's not all. There's still one last sharp turn in this bizarre story trajectory for now. It appears this Fairfax accuser intends to take some action on this issue, and so she's hired legal representation. And who might that legal representation be?
The Katz firm.
That's right, the very same. No, it's not the corpse of Ross from Friends. It's Deborah Katz and her Feinstein-referred legal team that represented Kavanaugh accuser Christine Blasey Ford in one of the biggest political soap operas in the history of the country. It's not clear if Katz herself will be representing this accuser, but her firm, Katz, Marshall & Banks, is consulting with this lady on an action plan. It's an oddly specific detail to cement this case as basically a lower-profile Kavanaugh sequel, unsubstantiated, decades-old accusations of sexual impropriety, advanced by the exact same law firm, no less. Like most sequels, it probably won't live up to the original, but what it does do is create a litmus test for everyone's consistency and commitment to principle. Those who crucified Kavanaugh as guilty will now have to do the same to Fairfax. The nature of the allegations is similar. In fact, it's worse in Fairfax's case, and the allegations are made through the exact same legal team. To be consistent, they'll have to throw their own teammate under the bus this time, at least if they honestly believe in a standard that decades-old unsubstantiated allegations should be enough to ruin your career. Either that, or they'll have to admit this was never about that standard at all, just politics. And by extension, those of us who seek to uphold due process and a presumption of innocence, not just as a legal standard, but as a cultural and philosophical standard too, will have to do the same for Fairfax, pending any additional evidence, of course. And I get it. From an entertainment perspective, I do like watching the Democrats squirm a bit, suffering the consequences of the standard they have set for society. But that does not mean I will recklessly assign guilt to anyone, and I will not say anything or take any action that makes that assignment. As the evidence stands right now, there is nothing sufficient to ruin Justin Fairfax's career over. The treatment of Brett Kavanaugh over the summer and the fall was a grotesque betrayal of this country's founding values, and it would have been equally grotesque if the politics were flipped, regardless of whether I agree with Brett Kavanaugh's judicial philosophy or not. By extension, the treatment of Justin Fairfax should not be determined by whether I agree with his politics or not. But who knows, maybe Ross's dead body has some new evidence or tricks up her sleeve, but if not, I'll be paying close attention to who actually believes in values and principle and who just believes in protecting their own team at the expense of those things. We'll see. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel always. Appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.